Hey everyone, thank you so much for clicking on my video. My name is Kevin, and a little known fact about me is I like to laugh. I like to giggle, chuckle, cackle, guffaw, if you will. More specifically though, I am a pretty big fan of stand-up comedy and the surrounding scene, and as a kid growing up in the 2000s, I pretty much grew up on the Comedy Central stand-up specials that dominated that period of time. And a lot of people my age did as well, which is I think a large part of the reason why, despite us being a generation centered on TikTok videos and instant social media gratification, an hour-long stand-up special can still appeal to a younger audience. But speaking of platforms like TikTok, they can be a good way for up-and-coming comedians to get discovered and have their big break, so to speak. And the most notable case of this in recent memory is a young man by the name of Matt Rife. Now, if you had the TikTok app on your phone, you probably know who Matt Rife is. But for the 1% of you watching this who don't know who he is a comedian who in the last year or so has just completely exploded on TikTok, mostly due to videos of his crowd work going insanely viral.
Does anybody here have any autistic children?
Now, I should note that Matt Rife is known to have a mainly female audience. Some would say due to his looks, some would say due to what he says on stage.
What's your name? Christina? You are so hot. Thank you so much.
But either way, it is generally known that his fan base is mostly women.
You're a grandma?
Which is why it recently came as such a surprise when he pretty much opened his first Netflix special, which was also his first non-self-produced special, with a bit making fun of victims of domestic violence.
And my boy who I was with was like, yeah, I feel bad for her, man. I feel like they should put her in the kitchen or something where nobody... And I was like, yeah, but I feel like if she could cook, she wouldn't have that black eye.
A lot of people saw this as a complete 180 for Matt, as he previously had been known as the guy who kind of caters to women with his material.
What do you mean they fucked him up? Who fucked up your titties?
And so, as it often does, the internet got pretty mad about it. In fact, the backlash was pretty intense, with every major news outlet covering it and thousands upon thousands of people on TikTok speaking out about it. And so now, at what Matt probably anticipated to be the peak of his career so far, he is overwhelmingly faced with antagonism and critique of his special. And so, what does Matt Rife do in this situation? Does he post a heartfelt apology to the fans that he's turned his back on? Does he simply ignore it and wait for it to blow over? Nah, he goes on a far-right podcast and whines about cancel culture for about an hour. God, what even is stand-up anymore? So that's what we're going to take a look at today. We are going to sit down and hear what Matt has to say to the internet's goofiest conservative culture warrior, Jordan Peterson.
You sons of bitches.
So sit down, relax, grab some popcorn, maybe some hot cocoa, because I have a feeling this one is going to be really unhinged.
And I purposely did it first in the show to go, hey, just so you know, this is the kind of humor I like to tell. And if it's not for you, you are so more than welcome to turn off the TV right now.
Oh my god, dude, what the fuck was that? That was like the most pretentious fucking intro I've ever seen in my entire life. What the does he not see how that looked? Jesus Christ.
Okay, so now you're a comedian and you got canceled for a domestic assault joke, and then
Jesus Christ, he's laughing like a fucking maniac. Tone it down a bit, bro. Jesus Christ.
when this blew up around you, why did you decide to take the strategy that you took? Why weren't you like racked with guilt and apologetic? And
Because it's just comedy.
Guys, I was just joking. I was just telling a joke. You can't get mad at me. It's just a comedy, guys. I was joking.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
God, this is what all the fucking comedians who get canceled say.
Oh, it was just a joke. Why is everyone getting so offended? Blah, blah, blah.
It's like, first of all, people aren't offended as much as they're just like, you know, critiquing a joke that didn't land, right? Like, it's not that everyone's butthurt about it. It's just that you made a joke, it didn't work, and now people are criticizing it. That's it. And to come on a right-wing podcast and basically beg people not to criticize your work is like, it's so pathetic and off-putting. It really is. Because he seems to be under the impression that, like, as long as what you're saying is in the context of a joke, it gives you like a free pass to just like say whatever you want without people getting mad. And by the way, that's what he means by it's just comedy. It's just comedy translates to as long as I have the mic in my hand, you can't get mad at anything I say.
You have to let the intrusive thoughts win in comedy. You have to. What comes, if you're a naturally funny person, the first thing that comes to your mind should be the funniest thing to you most of the time.
Right.
How many times have you fingered a girl for so long? You wake up the next day like,
How broad scale do you think this rebellion against what you said actually is?
It's probably a few dozen thousand, which sounds like a lot until you remember there's 8 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
And I would say 90% of the small majority that is upset with me doesn't go to comedy shows anyway.
Okay, so like this is what I don't understand. You're saying it's a small minority of people who are actually engaging on like hating on your bit or whatever. So it doesn't really affect you that much or matter. But literally 30 seconds ago, you were practically begging people not to criticize your work. So like, which is it? Like, are you at the center of a media smear campaign? Or is it just like a small collection of keyboard warriors talking shit? Like, you can't have both. You can't frame yourself both as this innocent, helpless victim of cancel culture and then also be the guy who's like unaffected and above it all. Do you guys know what I mean? Like, it's internally contradictory.
If I'm your problem, if you and I are face to face and you have a problem with my comedy that I tell, that I admit to the world, right? If you just remove yourself from me, if you do something as simple as just turn around, there is an entire planet behind you for you to go explore and live the rest of your life. You don't ever have to think about me.
Oh my God, I'm so fucking sick of this shit, dude. It's so fucking stale. Every male comedian says this shit now.
If you don't like me, you can just not watch me.
Like, bro, the ones who are complaining are your fans who are disappointed in you. Like, you build your entire brand around catering to women, which there's nothing wrong with, by the way. Your bread and butter is your bread and butter. Like, no shame in that. But you build your entire brand to a specific demographic, and then you open the fucking special with a bit that is openly antagonistic to that audience. Like what did you think was gonna happen? Like, he's acting as if people have no right to criticize him. It's so entitled. Actually, I think that kind of is the like, this is a form of entitlement. Like, he's probably so used to the status quo of our society giving people like him basically a free pass to say whatever they want. And the second they get criticized for any reason, they start to feel like, you know, that status quo that they benefit from so much is being threatened.
Yeah, I saw one TikTok video who was like, I have a wife and I found this severely disrespectful.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you cuck.
Yeah.
Whatever, dude.
Yeah. He
What do you-
probably
what
thinks
do you
that's a
get out
form of
this?
foreplay.
Yeah, what do you want to get more pussy outside of your wife? Like, chill out. You're already married. She already respects you.
Yeah, well, I used to think-
Jesus Christ, dude. This is so bad. Holy. I did not realize that this would be that fucking bad. Holy. He's literally a child. Like, he's literally a 14-year-old boy. Hey, man, I saw your special. I think that opening joke is kind of disrespectful. It's like kind of fucked up, man. You liberal snowflake. You cuck. Why don't you go back to having sex with your wife? Owned. Like, it's kind of interesting. He genuinely seems to think that his joke could not have possibly been the problem. Like, he's going to such extremes to convince himself that it's not my material being bad. This guy must just be making this video for some nefarious reason. It comes off as so insecure and like pathetic, really. Like, he probably realized his audience was like mostly female, felt weird about that, and then tried to like pivot more to like guy humor, and in doing so alienated the audience that he had. And so now, instead of having both girls and guys on his side, he kind of just has neither. And, you know, he's clearly kind of panicking about that.
So why did you decide to come on my podcast?
I'm a huge fan, man. I'm a huge fan, man.
Oh, well,
I
thank you,
find
sir.
you.
Oh, so he's a fan. So he's just a conservative then. Like you can't be a fan of Jordan Peterson and just not be a conservative, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't actually know his personal politics, but that is not a good sign, though. Oh, what's that? I'm being accused of misogyny. Ah, well, joke's on them. I've actually hated women this entire time.
Listen, you and I have never met. I'll be truthfully honest. I've never I haven't done extensive research into everything you've done, but I find you to be a very kind man and very well-spoken and someone who stands on their morals and the realism of society today. And I think that is incredibly rare, and I just highly appreciate you.
Oh, no. He's not just a conservative, he's also stupid.
I find you to be a very kind man.
No, but seriously though, I think it's so wild that like he finds out he's getting canceled and then like the second it happens, he's like, quick, get me on Jordan Peterson's stat. It's like, maybe that shouldn't be your first thought, bro. I don't know. Someone who stands on their morals and the realism of society today. What does that mean? Huh? What morals do you think Jordan Peterson is standing on? Like what? You think his transphobia is just so profound and intellectual? Like, give me a fucking break, dude. Yeah, Jordan Peterson really stuck it to the man when a glass of apple cider nearly killed him. Bruh. Fuck yeah, bro.
Apple cider? Like, what was it doing?
Sulfites in it.
What was it doing to you?
Oh, it produced an overwhelming sense of impending doom. And I seriously... So you do prepared material as well?
Yeah, I have 2 full specials on YouTube that are fully material.
I've only seen the crowd work. Okay.
Oh, you watched the red flags?
Yeah.
Oh, you watched the red flags?
Dude, I love that Jordan Peterson is just like, yeah, I appreciate all those kind words you just said about me. Really means a lot. I have no fucking clue who you are or what kind of work you've done. In fact, I haven't even seen the special that we're here to talk about. Dude, I love Jordan so much. I guess he really does stand on his morals of not giving a fuck who he's interviewing. But hey, what are you gonna do?
Well, I think comedy is purely down to intent. When people are bullying you, like when high schoolers are making fun of something about you, that's a totally different intent. Even though they are making a joke, their intention is that you're gonna feel a certain kind of way. That is what differentiates it from stand-up comedy. Every single thing I say on stage is said with nothing but the intention to make people laugh.
Okay, so I actually partially agree with what Matt is saying here. I think maybe he's right about intent. I think there is a meaningful difference between like an offensive joke that was meant to hurt someone's feelings and one that wasn't. And a lot of that difference comes down to, yes, intent, but, you know, there are also things like the execution of the joke and the context surrounding the joke. In the case of his domestic violence bit, like, I'm not really convinced that he had the purest of intentions here. I think that joke was him explicitly acknowledging the fact that his audience is mainly female and using the joke as a tool to like pivot away from that. And he did it by throwing women and victims of abuse under the bus. So while I agree that intent is important, I don't think that the intent of this joke was purely just to make people laugh. There was also an ulterior motive to shift his own cultural perception and brand more towards men. And that is bad. Because at that point, it's not about making the audience laugh. It's about making yourself look a certain way. And he refuses to acknowledge that the reality of the situation is much simpler than he makes it out to be. Like, it's not some huge media firestorm of people who are like so offended at his joke. Really, most of what I've seen, at least, has just been people that think it was kind of just not funny. But for Matt, it's easier and kind of more comforting to believe that this outrage storm actually exists. Because, you know, he has to overinflate the gravity of the situation to avoid the reality that his stand-up genuinely just needs work. And believing that your critics are a bunch of SJWs that are butthurt about it allows you to dismiss any actual criticism that might come your way about it.
I saw this one guy on YouTube who's complaining about you. You know, he said, first of all, oh, maybe you'll recognize him. He said that, you know, you built your career as an ally of women. That was basically his point. Now that you've betrayed them with your jokes about domestic abuse. And so he was playing this, you know, I'm the friend of women sort of game.
Yeah. Think of comedy like a store, like a restaurant front, right? You go in there, the food's not for you. You can leave. You didn't have to stop in here.
Okay, so I mean, this is just the argument he made earlier. You know, if you don't like my stuff, just leave or don't watch. Like, it's just so silly. That's the only word I can think of to describe it. It's just silly. Because, like, if I, to use his analogy, if I go into a restaurant, one that I've been to before and enjoy, I know what to expect the next time I go in there. And if I go in there one day and the restaurant has decided, you know what, we changed all the recipes to include poop.
Everything bagel, do a half pound of poop. You know, throw a little poop on there.
Am I just like not allowed to complain about that? Like, I can't go on Twitter and be like, yeah, they put poop in all the food. Like, that's kind of fucked up. Like, do you just expect me to say, well, I guess the poop wasn't for me? Well, there's other restaurants. It's like, no, there's a situation here that clearly deserves to be criticized.
If you're on this earth for such a limited amount of time, how insane is it to sit behind your phone and computer and complain about something you don't like when you have a world at your hands of all the things you do like? What an absolute waste of energy, time, and emotion.
Dude, this shit is so pathetic. Like, because like he has to simultaneously act like he's so unbothered by all the backlash, but at the same time he has to be like, actually criticizing my work is beta behavior, and if you criticize me that makes you look lame. Like, oh my god, chill. You are clearly very worked up over this, man. And like, it is in large part your fans doing the complaining. So like, when you say how insane is it to complain about something you don't even like, it's like, they do like you. They're your fans. Like, they're criticizing your bit because they're disappointed. Also, you are literally complaining on a podcast right now about being canceled. Like, it does not get any more pathetic than that. Like, that is the real waste of energy, if you ask me. So yeah, I mean, this interview doesn't really go anywhere. I mean, I watched the entire thing. They kind of just talk in circles about how you shouldn't criticize Matt Rife because he was only joking, but also none of the criticism actually bothers him. But also, if you don't like him, you should just not watch his stuff. And it's like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same old shit we've heard 1,000 times from 1,000 different comedians. But like, what's the reason for that? Why have we heard it so many times before? And why are so many public figures so unwilling to hear criticism about their work? Let's look a little deeper into that. So, in the entertainment business, it pretty much all comes down to incentives. Similar to the reason that he included that controversial bit in his special, he wants to shift away from the pretty boy, ladies' man persona into more of a mainstream guy's guy comic style. And as he's admitted himself, he included that joke to appeal to that audience, to set himself apart from the stuff he had done in the past. But now that it didn't pan out the way that he had hoped, why is he now appealing to the most bad faith actors on the internet? Like, I'm pretty sure that nobody expected his first public appearance after his cancellation to be on a conservative podcast. I mean, it just seems strange, right? Like, why all of a sudden is he on this weird trajectory? Well, it's important to keep in mind when analyzing these things that there is an entire conservative apparatus that exists in media for this specific type of moment. There are entire networks of people that wait around for this exact circumstance to happen to act as sort of a safety net for so-called canceled celebrities. In other words, there is a huge incentive for shows like the Jordan Peterson podcast to scoop celebrities up at a low point in their career and try and launder their image to affect their own interests. Basically, by doing this, they are recruiting. Now, they're not necessarily recruiting Matt Rife himself. That's not what I mean. They're going after his fans. You see, when Matt Rife is in the midst of controversy, it is in the best interest of people like Peterson to say, hey, come on my show, tell your side of the story. Meanwhile, he uses Matt as a sort of tool to push his talking points onto a new audience. And when Matt Rife appears on these shows and says he's a huge fan, it provides an incentive for the more moderate members of his audience to lean towards Peterson and his talking points. It's the same reason that they are constantly overstating the amount of outrage present on the left while simultaneously understating the gravity of similar situations on the right. They're obviously not interested in true discourse, but merely poisoning the well so much that their far-right positions begin to seem kind of reasonable to someone who doesn't really know any better. And that's why this video comes off as so unhinged. We are watching two people with their own separate agendas talk at each other from their ivory towers about how they're victims of the left and cancel culture. It comes off as so performative and frankly boring, because like, you have a special on the biggest platform in the world. You're on a podcast right now with millions of views complaining about how your feelings were hurt. And like, we're supposed to give a shit about whatever it is that's affecting you. Either way, though, this podcast was just painful to sit through. I'm not gonna lie. I personally find Jordan Peterson to be like one of the most pretentious, like fake intellectual conservative pieces of shit in the world, and this podcast was just really good evidence of that. I mean, maybe we can give Matt the benefit of the doubt and say he isn't really familiar with Peterson's work, but holy shit, it really does just seem like he came on this podcast just because he knew Peterson would suck him off the whole time. But yeah, that was the Matt Rife Jordan Peterson podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed watching. I feel like we are all now collectively dumber for having watched it, but I hope you got something out of this video. If you liked this video, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. It would really help me out in the channel. This is a little different from my last video, which was a bit more essay style research type video, and this is more like react type video. I'm trying out a bunch of stuff, just seeing what's the best type of stuff to make. So let me know what you thought of this video, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.